What you see there is the appearance of tropical moisture flowing northward. That was not taken this morning. It was actually taken a while back last year, but I thought that was pretty cool. Use some of that on the opening clip. Because as you can see here, the moisture is flowing northward. And that's marked by these marginal VFR conditions coming all the way up from Corpus Christi into Skew-t, Kansas, and Tulsa. We do have a dry line in place. You can see that from this triple point located right around Garden City, Dodge City, extending down the Caprock to about San Angelo and then to west of Del Rio. And then further to the west, we've got this new Pacific front. There's a very good push of cold air behind that. And there you can see those cold temperatures, 63 in Phoenix, 64 in Tucson. This is pretty close to an all-time low for daily maximums. Only 4 times in the past 125 years has Tucson seen afternoon highs in the 60s this time of year. And up to the north, 58 there at Las Vegas. Yeah, this is definitely cold air. And 31 in Flagstaff with half a mile in snow. And it's not just Arizona, but it's the Mojave Desert too. 62 there at 29 Palms, Bicycle Lake, Daggett 58 degrees, and going on up into the Nevada Desert, 48 at Tonopah with strong northwest winds gusting to 30 miles an hour. So that's quite a cold blast right there. We can see that on the 850 millibar temperature anomaly, centered across Baja California, Southern California, and southwestern Arizona. Where's it heading? Well, obviously it's going to be moving towards the east there. Looks like the worst of it confined to northern Mexico, El Paso. So temperatures are going to be a bit low in that area, but eventually air mass modification takes over and moderates those temperatures, just some very cold overnight lows. And you can see the heat returns. Now, where did that come from? Well, we saw yesterday an upper level high is going to be building in that area. That's it right there, moving into Oregon tomorrow, and then spreading over much of the western U.S. into the weekend. And those 60-degree highs in Tucson, Phoenix, those are going to be up well into the 90s by Saturday. And you can see a lot of that heat spreads all the way into Colorado and the Central Plains later in the weekend, and even into Texas. Looks like a hot day there with this little spot of 15 degrees above normal, 15 Celsius. Yeah, look at that temperature spreading into Texas there. That's 30 degrees Celsius up at 850. Let's check out that sounding. Wow, so yeah, we're not only going to be capped, but we're going to be devoid of any moisture later in the week. There's that very warm temperature there. So obviously we're going to have some very warm conditions late this weekend in Texas. Yeah, check out those temperatures there for Sunday. GFS going for 100s. This would be a combination of impressive downslope with very warm mid-level conditions, if that actually pans out. The official forecast going for only 81 on Saturday and 86 on Sunday. So that shows you the wide divergence in forecast solutions there. Midland looking for 90s. So that does show you that if we can't really expect to get these right on the models, there's no reason to really be looking at severe weather possibilities next week. The only thing we can reasonably be sure of is this ridge building in for the weekend, and after that, some zonal flow opening up, a ridge building on the west coast, and that will drive some northwesterly flow into the plains and possibly cool us down into the first and second week of May. The hazards on this Tuesday afternoon, we have a red flag warning for eastern New Mexico and far west Texas. That's due to that very strong, gusty southwest wind. Ahead of that, we've got a couple severe thunderstorm watches, one right there, western Oklahoma, and the Childress area, and the other from Denver eastward. Then we've got a couple flood warnings all the way up into Missouri. Then up in Indiana, we have a special weather statement for gusty winds, and then we pick up another red flag warning in New Hampshire. The SPC scenario looking like this, a broad, slight risk along that frontal boundary and then down the dry line. You can see that new watch box pop up right there, and then the upslope stuff up there in Colorado with a slight risk extending out over Colby and up into the North Platte area. Then we have this other slight risk further up the front in central Wisconsin. No mesoscale discussions or watches in effect there for Wisconsin. So let's focus in on Texas, what's happening there. I think the frontal boundaries are going to be running roughly like that right there. The dry line technically would run something like that, but functionally I would be inclined to draw it further to the east like that, because obviously we're not going to get deep convection in that zone right there where dew points are in the 30s. Let's see how that moisture field evolves. First of all, before I do that, the moisture axis running about like that, pretty much up I-35 towards Oklahoma City. During the afternoon, we see the moisture advecting towards the northwest. That's usually a good sign for convection because it's moving upslope, it's moving into western targets closer to the upper air dynamics. And one thing that I'm seeing here is the development of a cold pool. Look at that discontinuity right up here. Let's back that up. This is actually the 9 p.m. map, so we want to go back further. I can see that cold pool getting established around Paducah, Childress. Let me give you the locations. Paducah, Childress, Quanah, Vernon, pretty much in that area right there. And back that up further. I can see evidence of it right there. Very early evidence. That's around the current time, so I guess storms are about to get started here. Then you can see that cold pool spreading from this meso-high centered on Childress, according to the high-resolution rapid refresh, about 6 p.m. And very likely that's going to drive the outflow boundaries southward, and wherever that impinges on the flow of moisture, which runs about like that, you're going to favor the development of convection. So especially right in this area around Vernon, that's where I would expect some development. It's a little bit less certain further to the west where the moisture inflow is a little bit drier. So that's kind of the scenario we're looking at. No evidence on this graphic of any deep convection further to the east. Then as we go into the 10 p.m. hour, you can see those cold pools coming together from Oklahoma City down to Wichita Falls and propagating along the Red River and towards I-35, and then diminishing there a bit towards morning, but looks like it's still chugging along pretty good up there in southwest Oklahoma. The moisture is still increasing, so we're going to have round 2 coming up for tomorrow. And let's take a look at what the soundings look like. First of all, let's sample the inflow. The critical inflow area is probably going to be right here around Graham to Breckenridge. Grab a sounding for that at this current time. Air mass still capped, but some very steep lapse rates from 850 up to about 600. That's certainly a good indication right there. And then above that, looks like some mid-level clouds. Altocumulus, altostratus, something like that. So that would indicate overcast conditions. But below that, some dry air. The moisture is shallow. We covered that yesterday, and it's only extending up to about 3,000 feet. Above that, 4,000 to 5,000, very dry conditions. So that's a negative as far as today goes. And that's helping to keep the capes on the moderate side. Grab another sounding here. We're going to go further up into the moisture, or I should say further upstream towards Goldthwaite, Stephenville. Looking for consistency here. That looks very similar. Cap a little bit stronger to the south as we would expect. And then we're going to go further up into southwest Oklahoma around Fort Sill, Snyder up in that area. That's good. A similar picture. Similar cap strength, similar moisture depth. Okay, so things are looking very consistent horizontally. And then I'm going to go check out that dry air. And this is stuff you should be doing on a severe weather day to kind of see what's going on. And we see the absence of the cap due to the lift overspreading that area. Also, weaker moisture, very little moisture, dry right off the surface, so that's not going to really support much convection, really. So you're likely going to be overturning that and transporting dry air down to the surface. There's another look at that right there. It is uncapped. I mean, we may get a few showers out of that. But those lower dew points as you go south towards Interstate 20 are going to be a big problem. So any of these cells here are likely going to be high-based. The better convection, closer to the moisture inflow. So certainly that cell right there, maybe some of you are tracking this already, that's going to be moving up towards the Vernon area as the afternoon goes on. Looks like it's in the county south of Childress or southwest of Childress and just south of that. So I'm verifying that model. Yeah, that's reasonably close. So the model is actually not really moving it this way, but moving it up the boundary. Now, when you move convection along boundaries like that, you tend to get linear structures. That tends to be an issue, and I think that probably is the case there. Kind of a linear complex coming together. It's back building up the line. The drier air, of course, a problem, but some of the storms further north along the line, those are tapping the moisture inflow and going through a window of strong convection. So that's mostly up the 287 corridor. And then around dusk, things gradually move towards the Wichita Falls area, and the model going for kind of a loose MCS going along the Red River region. And then some nocturnal convection back further west along the same region. Late tonight, some possibility of stuff around the hill country, San Antonio, and then we go for round 2 tomorrow. That's a little bit less definite, but there will be boundaries in place up in that region there. So there's what we have at this time. This is going to be around Guthrie to Dickens, and that is a multi-cell cluster. Got a severe thunderstorm warning on that. They're looking for 60-mile-an-hour wind gust, quarter-sized hail, and that's moving up the boundary, but if that becomes very strong, we would expect more of a east-northeast or eastward movement. So we'll have to watch for that this afternoon. The cells further down the line, those are having problems with the moisture, as we pointed out. That's around Post down to about Tahoka. And there's what's going on in that part of Texas. Dew points near 70 at Vernon, 63 at Childress, and as you go south, you can see the moisture deficit problems with 51 at Sweetwater, 54 Abilene, 46 at Snyder. The better moisture, yeah, you can definitely see that just to the east of Abilene, that 67 dew point there. And then you can see that 68 at Wichita Falls. So the moisture is present, and it should interact with that portion of the line along 287 this afternoon. And that's all we have for this edition of Forecast Lab. No new Patreon supporters today. If you're not able to support us on Patreon, you can go to our website, weathergraphics.com, and pick up a book or software or a weather graph. Or you can just tell people about our weathercast. If you're on social media, that would be very much appreciated. Okay, take care, and we will see you tomorrow for the Wednesday edition. Bye-bye.